sought us in fear of you. He died of the wounds you gave him. Oh, we got a model father here.
In 2018, God of War was reintroduced to the world. While there was a lot of skepticism going into it, Santa Monica Studio presented us with an entirely different Kratos than we were used to. Not an over-the-top rage-filled beast, but a more somber, retreated man, coming to terms with the loss of his wife and trying to teach his son to survive in a harsh world. The majority of gamers came away impressed. This new look for Kratos was immediately compelling, and through his touching journey, I fell in love with the relationship that formed between him and his son Atreus. That's not to say God of War wasn't without its faults. Particularly, the enemy variety became repetitive, side quests were fun but didn't really add much to the story or lore, serving as more of a secondary reason to explore its larger than usual world. Despite criticisms and nitpicks, I stand by the fact that God of War 2018 was terrific. God of War Ragnarok has a ton of expectations to meet as a major sequel, but how does this chapter of Kratos' journey compare with the added power of the PS5? Cory Barlog has stated in interviews that Ragnarok will be the last God of War game set in Norse mythology, giving the game even more weight and setting the stage. If you want to go in with a completely clean slate, not knowing anything, I will just say this. Ragnarok is a masterpiece, and you'll be doing yourself a disservice by skipping it. And for those concerned with spoilers, I will have 2 spaces in this review to reduce spoilers. The first one, I'll be diving into gameplay. Some may want to stay clear of even this section because it is difficult to talk about this game without some story spoilers. After the second little break, I will go into story. While skipping significant spoilers, there are sure to be some light spoilers. Again, do yourself a favor and play Ragnarok. It is worth your time and money. And with all that housekeeping out of the way, let's get into the fantastic gameplay of Ragnarok. Regarding gameplay, much of what was good in the previous game is even better here. The Leviathan axe still feels amazing with added satisfaction thanks to the haptics on the DualSense controller, making the weapon carry extra weight as you feel it slam into Kratos' hand upon recalling it. And the Chaos Blades also feel somehow better, lighter than the axe, used more for crowd control but able to deal some serious damage. And Atreus' arrow attacks feel good to use as well. This is kind of where we get into gameplay spoilers, so if you want to skip out, now is your chance. Okay, if you're still here, you might be asking yourself, what is so different in Ragnarok? The answer is simple. There's a ton of gameplay changes. While throughout the game we get abilities for the Leviathan axe and the Chaos Blades akin to what we had in the previous journey, what's primarily different is the new weapon, the Draupnir Spear. A quicker weapon that does significantly less damage, but gives Kratos a decent ranged attack and is even faster than the Chaos Blades. In God of War Ragnarok, Kratos teams up with more than just Atreus. Brok and Sindri join him at specific points as companions. The reason for this is a massive change for this entry. We don't play as Kratos for the entire journey. We finally get to control Atreus directly. He plays wildly different than his father. As a faster and not as hard-hitting character, having to rely mostly on his bow and his special arrows, one to stun and one to strengthen the elemental effects of his partners, which range from Sindri to a talking sword. Not to mention Atreus being half god, half giant, he comes with his own version of a rage attack. I won't spoil it here, but every time I activate it, I had a giant grin ear to ear, and it makes some of the later fights and story beats where it comes up an absolute blast to experience. Returning from the previous game is the skill tree, which feels similar skill-wise, but how they control the game flow is different. Skills can be maxed out and prestiged almost, adding more effects such as reduced damage while using the said skill, or adding more damage. This updated skill system really allows further customization for how one approaches each battle. Atreus has his own additional skill tree and accessory slots, but it would have been nice if he had more of a thorough armor set options like Kratos. Armor sets are back this time, but I found that each set looked more remarkable and distinct from the other. We can also level up Kratos' rage mode abilities and Atreus' special abilities using experience points. It makes for this interesting balance of trying to decide exactly what you want to build out, but by the end, I was swimming in so many extra experience, so there's nothing really to worry about missing out from one section over the other. One of my favorite changes in Ragnarok, and a good segue into the story stuff, is that the side quests have actual weight to them. In the previous game, side quests were more of a way to fill out the open sections without adding much to the characters or overall narrative. This is, of course, not including the Valkyries, which push the original's combat systems to the extreme. Thankfully, there are a lot of side quests in Ragnarok, and there's an entire area the size of a new realm that I just happened to stumble upon accidentally with an expansive breadth of new side quests. Every single side quest here serves a purpose, fleshing out new characters, of which there are several new faces to meet, or adding further depth to the returning cast in deeply, deeply satisfying ways. So, I really want to get into the story here, but that's a little difficult to do without spoilers. I won't be going into anything significant, but I will undoubtedly spoil some minor stuff here and there. So again, this is your last chance to go into God of War Ragnarok completely blind. Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. In the previous game, we left Kratos and Atreus, finding out that Atreus is actually Loki. The pair found a mural where Kratos dies during Ragnarok, but only Kratos sees this dire detail. Atreus has no idea what is to come. And this is basically the main through line in Ragnarok. Kratos knows his fate, trying to prepare Atreus without letting him know. We get thrust right into the action from the get-go. A somber-looking Kratos stares into the fire during Thimbleweir at the start, and from there, the devs do it again with a single-shot camera. This celebrated framing also applies to moments when we switch back and forth between Kratos and Atreus, letting us experience both sides of the story very smoothly. Seriously, the camera work and how scenes play out during these switches are excellent. What really works for the story is Atreus. While he is off on his own, it is almost a more lighthearted adventure in contrast to Kratos' tale, who is, well, Kratos. How the legendary God Slayer is handled in Ragnarok is properly considered and respectful. The amount of care given to his past is awe-inspiring, as the pain in Kratos' eyes visually reveals how tortured he is by his past. And the lengths that he goes to make sure Atreus won't follow his mistakes is a story that, as a father, I can relate to. Kratos has also grown a lot as a person. We know this from the events of 2018's God of War, but here it just hits differently. There is this tremendous inner battle happening in Kratos. War is coming for Asgard. Does he fall back into his old ways, or does he trust Atreus' judgment, who is searching for a less violent solution? It's interesting to see how their deep relationship pushes them to different boundaries. I thought we would never see them separate. They both lie and try to save each other, combating each other as emotions rise, but at the same time there's this evident real paternal love here, and it's beautiful. During some of the more climactic battles, there are moments when we actually see them work together, and I was literally jumping out of my seat and cheering. I don't remember the last time that happened to me in a game. It's tough to talk about 95% of this story without including giant spoilers, but I'll try to convey how exciting these events are without revealing too much. We know Kratos will fight Thor based on the final moments of the previous adventure. This clash is a great battle to rival the brawl with Baldur at the beginning of the first game. We also know that the father-son duo will try to stop Ragnarok. Both go on emotional journeys, both together and alone. When they are alone, they become so reflective of each other, and you can see that Atreus is on the edge of defining his own destiny, while Kratos is struggling to be a good father, pushing himself to do whatever he can to save Atreus, no matter the cost to himself. I cried 6 times during my 37 hours of playtime. Multiple moments had me jumping or sitting on the edge of my seat with the amount of tension during many of the cutscenes. As I rolled credits, I just couldn't wait to jump back into the world of Ragnarok. God of War Ragnarok is the best way to end the PlayStation 4 generation and truly begin the PlayStation 5 generation. It is the most mature, respectful, and reflective story told in games this generation. There is something here for everybody, and surprisingly it all works. God of War Ragnarok is a game that will be discussed for years, if not decades. I'm excited to see where the series takes us next, but also it leaves these characters in a perfect place with enough levity to be left alone for a long time. In short, God of War Ragnarok is the game of the generation. This year is filled with games that you should play, but Ragnarok is the game you need to play. If you want more Ragnarok content, or just generally any other kind of video game content, head on over to foreverclassicgames.com, and we'll see you around next time.